you people. What's going on, you people?
Yeah, so we're doing one on this samurai program that we saw the other day. It was good.
We watched the samurai program.
Yeah, samurai program. I wanted to make an announcement though before we started the show. On YouTube 5 days ago, Billy Idol released a new video. It's called Bitter Taste. It's really good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
It and there's something about it. I think he's kind of going out the way Bowie's going out. He's looking kind of skinny, and it's a death song.
Uh-oh.
So it's not confirmed, but I suspect that this is going to be his last album, and he's going out like a G. The song's really good. It's almost like a Chris Isaak sounding song.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
all right.
It's almost kind of like a mixture of Chris Isaak and maybe like thinking Roy Orbison or something. It's rock, but it's kind of you'll see. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real good. But he's looking kind of skinny. Makes me think, maybe they're going to make an announcement. I don't know. You know how Bowie went out? You didn't tell anybody what the hell was going on, and then put out all these damn creepy videos going out like a G, and then a few days later, turns out he died.
Yeah.
He announced that he was dying.
Well,
he was dying when he was making the videos.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. We'll just see. I haven't seen the video, so I don't know what he looks like.
Yeah, a lot of death imagery, and that's what the lyrics are about. We're gonna see.
That is kind of creepy.
Yeah, in the end, he's dressed like an angel, laying dead on the ground and shit.
Oh, okay. Well, that's that's pretty straightforward. All right. I hope you're okay, Billy.
Yeah.
Damn.
But it's a great song, though.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to look that up.
It's good, yeah.
But yeah, so we just kind of stumbled across. This is new, right? This is 2021.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know if they're gonna make more seasons. They just had it listed as season 1.
Probably.
I mean, because it seemed like they could pick up from, because this covers a pretty brief. This covers like 1550 to like.
Yeah, not long.
The first quarter, like the 17th century, maybe.
It just talks about how Japan became unified. But
the Sengoku period is what they're covering.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff that happened after this. You know what I mean? It didn't get peaceful, not forever. A bunch of shit happens later on. You have the whole Edo period, then the Tokugawa period, and everything goes on, and then eventually you start going into you could even go into the Republic period of Japan. That was back in the 1700s, early 1800s. Weird shit happened then too, where they were fighting the samurai, getting rid of the old system. So Japan had an interesting history. Really
and I didn't really know. I mean, I knew a little bit about this from movies and shit I remember from school and everything. But it's kind of cool to see something like this just laid out. And I like that they did it. It's not just like a documentary so much like just talking heads, although they do have that.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of reenactments, which I thought was really cool. And that was honestly, that's the best thing. I like that they had the talking head, all the historians and stuff. I like that they had them all in this really nice black and white. I thought that was pretty classy. And then all the animation in between all the maps and everything where they're showing who owns what territory and stuff.
Yeah, the battle maps all look like Japanese stuff from the 1500s.
And it's just all this spreading ink and stuff like that. It's really, really
People's
cool.
Photographs fucking appearing on parchment and then spreading ink, spreading into them, and it's just really good with a good score in the back. Which is kind of like a mixture of old traditional Japanese sounding stuff mixed with metal and fucking classical music. It's a good series. It's kind of like watching Game of Thrones, but it's a documentary.
So much beheading, you guys.
Yeah.
Just so much beheading.
And it just the way they did things, fucking cutting people's heads off, fucking viewing the heads and
ritual seppuku.
Yeah, how people
cutting your disemboweling yourself.
Yeah.
Which is pretty hardcore, I gotta say.
Yeah, how wives betrayed people, and then sometimes wives were good with, they were all these arranged marriages, and then lots of concubines, and people being born by the wrong mama. Just it's a lot of weird shit. Dudes that were peasants rising to become emperors.
Shout out to Lady Cha Cha.
Yeah, Lady Cha Cha's in there.
It was one of the concubines.
Yeah, it's actually she wasn't a concubine, was she? Yeah. I guess she was a concubine. Yeah.
She was just the one that finally gave birth
to the
heir, to the guy that didn't have one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he had one by his wife, but then the concubine had one, but then he died, and then like he had another one though. But then he was just a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so this covers the period. I think it starts in like 1550, 1551, something like that. And then like when there was no unified anything, it was all just warlords.
Yeah, daimyos. They were warlords fighting over Japan. It was just big organized crime syndicates, basically.
Yeah.
Warring factions. Real interesting. The Japanese, the Chinese, and the Koreans, to a certain sense, were extremely warlike. They're not... You look at Japan today, you know, you look at Tokyo and their fucking cosplay and anime and shit. That's not who they were, you know. And that went right up until the Second World War. And the reason why they're not like that anymore is just because I just think the guys that were like that all got killed. They all died.
Well, like I said, during this period, because you have to think too that, you know, the documentary, and like I said, I think it's 6 episodes, yeah?
Yes,
so it's like 6 45-minute episodes, something like that. And so they kind of stress this a lot, like during the documentary, that, you know, this Civil War was going on for like 150 years.
Yeah, that's all they knew.
Yeah, so they're like generations of people just grew up, and that's all they knew was just like fucking killing everybody.
And they were, you know, pretty advanced in terms of the technology that they made, and even some of the thinking was pretty advanced. Advanced art and advanced philosophies and stuff. But, you know, the concept of Bushido wasn't around. They didn't really have honor as would know it today. Then honor was killing, was winning. And to win, a lot of times you had to slaughter entire families. You couldn't allow a single heir to survive, and you know,
yeah, man, they were whacking each other's like brothers' heads off and shit like that. Not even thinking about it.
They would go into disobedient provinces that had been independent and self-ruling for 150 years and just slaughter them all down to all the men, the women, and the children. Just genocides. They did that to Iga, I think, is what it was. There was a independent mountain kingdom.
Yeah, it was just like a really small kind of like, and they had all
mountain
just kind
province.
and they were all like guerrilla warriors in there. They wouldn't let anybody come through there.
They didn't really have any. They didn't have a warlord in charge of them. It was self-governance. It was kind of like described as maybe a democracy, where they just kind of voted and got together and kind of decided what they were going to do. But they were also kind of like pirates. It's where they think that the stories of the ninja came from those guys, and they were just mountain guerrillas. Which they use the word in English "guerrilla" a lot. That is the improper phrase. It came from the word "guerrera," which means warrior in Spanish, and it just got mistranslated as gorilla into English. It has nothing to do with the great apes. It just meant war.
It's spelled different.
Guerrera tactics just means warrior tactics instead of soldier tactics. You know, terrorism. You know. But,
Wolf Whisperer says, if you want to hear from the people who worked on this series, there's a podcast called Samurai Podcast with people who worked on the series.
Okay.
Not a plug, just a recommendation. Yeah, that might be worth listening to.
Hopefully there's another season. I could watch a bunch of seasons of this.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And he's saying it too, because we were talking about how like wiping out their whole families wasn't really that unusual. But he's like Oda Nobunaga, who was like the first kind of warlord that they talked about. You know, he started in Owari, right? And then like kind of spread outward from there. But Wolf Whisperer said he was reminded me of a Japanese Vlad the Impaler, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
He was kind of like that. And like I said, all of the kind of the warlords and stuff were obviously you know, violent and went to war all the time and like killed their relatives and shit like that. But the shit that Nobunaga did, even some of his own like samurais and generals and stuff were like, bro, let's back that.
He used a lot of terror tactics, cutting people's heads off and stuff for women,
really children, when he didn't really have to. Well, and the thing about it is that ended up biting him in the ass in the end, because like there was so much rebellion against him, because you know, you do shit like that, people gonna hate you.
Yeah, then later on another guy appears, I forgot what his name is, his lieutenant. He didn't like all that shit that was going on. He was more of a mixture of And really, the guys who, in periods like this, who tend to rise to the top are guys that can use force of violence and politics. They used the stick and the carrot, because that's a lot more effective. If you have a guy who's utterly ruthless, you have to fight to the death, because if you surrender to him, he kills you. So it's not a good idea to kill people who surrender to you. If they surrender, let them surrender. that means in the future you don't have to fight everybody. They'll just surrender to you.
Yeah, because eventually you go around being enough of a dick, everybody's going to turn against you.
Because the second you jump on them, they have to fight to the death because they know they're going to be executed.
Yeah.
So they just fight against you harder, you know. So you don't want to do that. You want to show that if you disobey, you're punished. If you fight hard, you'll be punished. But if you surrender, you're rewarded. That's always you got to grease the wheels, you know. And if you surrender, you'll be treated fairly. You know, fucking even Cyrus the Great knew that. And that went back thousands of years ago. You always want to come in as a liberator, not a conqueror. It's so much easier. Fucking Cyrus the Great just run into a damn kingdom and fucking the enemy army would fucking revolt against their own king and join Cyrus because they knew they were going to get a good deal.
Yeah.
So when Cyrus showed up, you know, it was better to be with him than your despotic king usually, because he'd give you human rights and stuff, and you know, allow you to conduct business, would not overtax you, wouldn't tell you what religion to worship. So it's always better to be flexible, let people be who they are. If you start trying to change people's culture, they bite you in the ass, which that's what's happening right now in Afghanistan. I told you everything I told you guys over a period of 2 years of doing this show happened. All of it happened. It will continue to happen. Never should have been there. Totally the wrong strategy. It was all about fucking making money and making in those poppy fields, and it was all about those contracts. And they went down there to try to train, and then, oh, well, the Taliban will never take over. We got 300,000 Afghanis with the best U.S. Army equipment, the best training. They just threw all that shit down and fucking let the Taliban come in. Why? Because the Taliban was the rightful government. The government we were propping up was a puppet government. The people didn't support that. They supported the Taliban. That's who they are. You can't change people. You just can't. Not let them live. And if you kill them all, you can change them. But if you're not going to do that, leave people the fuck alone. It's it goes back when I was in the service. We were refusing missions. My units were refusing missions that ended up being debacles. Just like Operation Restore Hope, Somalia, fucking joke. It went just like we said it was going to go. You go in there, they're going to steal the food, you shoot some of them, they'll all turn against you. And that's exactly what happened. Nation building is a fucking joke. It can't happen. You're a foreigner. You can't go into their land and tell them what to do. You wouldn't put up with it, neither do they. That's the moral of the story. And that's kind of like what Japan was about in certain ways. You know, they were all little warring factions and they fought each other. They were all Japanese, but not the Japanese you know. There were different factions of Japanese. They didn't see themselves as a
they were in
Japanese.
Families and clans, like extended clans.
Right. There wasn't any unity. Not until there was an external threat. And they had to invent an external threat with China, you know, which they talk about it a bit in this movie. And they got their asses kicked in Korea. But that went on for a long, long time. Yeah,
because they were trying to go through Korea. When he didn't really have to.
No.
He just got it in his head that I'm going to go conquer China because he got too big for his britches, I guess. But you had to go through Korea to do that. And Korea's like, yeah, nah.
I think there was another motive. Peace couldn't come to Japan because they just had so many goddamn armed armies and different factions. The war against China was a way of getting rid of all of his opponent's armies, I think. Like, let's get these guys let's get them out of Japan. It'll be safer in Japan if these armies are doing something somewhere else. And maybe we'll gain some land, but maybe not. Maybe just those soldiers will be killed. And the past will die along with them. That may have been the thinking. But he had syphilis later on. His thinking probably wasn't real clear to begin with.
Yeah, he kind of went
I think
a little bit.
I think it might just
lally.
Imagine if you were fighting the Japanese and the Germans and you didn't kill all the Japanese and the Germans. They just kind of made peace with you. They would still be around, and they would still be a threat if you were an American. So let's try to get the Japanese and the Germans to go fight Russia. Maybe Russia will kill them for us. I think that's what he was thinking.
It could have been. Although, like I said, he didn't really entirely seem like he was in his right mind either.
No.
Because he made some really kind of batshit decisions.
I think it was just a vague concept he had. let's get them out of here and maybe we'll gain something.
Yeah,
maybe they're killed off and we don't have to deal with them anymore.
But it's just...
And my armies will stay here and I'll be the strongest army and fucking all these provinces will listen to me. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, well, and like I said, it does seem also that, you know, once you get like a little bit of success, just like, oh, I have all this power, I amassed all this. It's like they just want more and more. It's kind of like what we were talking about yesterday when we were talking about Cocaine Cowboys, where it's like the dude had $100 million. He could have stopped because he hadn't got caught yet, but he's like, no, I just know I need $1 billion.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, hey, I took over half of the country. Why don't I take over the other? It's like they can't stop. It's like, I don't know. It just gets to a point where...
Well, with the Cocaine Cowboys, if you spend $1 million a month, that $10 million or $100 million is nothing. That's only 100 months. You can't retire on that. That's what they're thinking.
Right.
Maybe I could retire on $1 billion.
Like a normal person could, but you know what I mean? I could not only retire on it, I could like leave a bunch after I was dead. I don't think I could spend it all.
Yeah, but the whole...
Because I don't want a lot of that shit that they buy with it.
This is a great series. Hopefully they'll come up with some more. The big loser of the story would have been, out of this whole story, was Korea. Having lived in Korea even in the 90s, in the early 90s, Korea is still traumatized over all this. For fucking thousands of years, Korea was caught in between China and fucking Japan.
That's gotta suck a lot.
As they constantly killed each other.
Yeah.
They were stuck between a hammer and an anvil constantly, and they couldn't side with the Japanese or the Chinese would attack them, and they couldn't side with the Japanese or the Chinese would attack them.
That's what I mean. You're kind of fucked.
They were just sit there caught between a rock and a hard place, and that forged this very special kind of people, man. The Koreans are fucking tough. The toughest of them all, those North Koreans. North Koreans are fucking insane. Now, they're not quite the same people they were. You know, their government has whittled them down to about nothing. But they do have willpower. Amazing willpower.
Well, that kind of, I mean, even going back to the show, it's just kind of like the campaign where, hey, I'm going to take over, like I took over most of Japan, now I'm going to take over China too. Oh, and Korea's kind of in the way. We'll figure that out. We'll get, and then they start marching it, and the Koreans are like, yeah, no, and then like they started fighting back, and it's almost like they were surprised.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Wait,
and it was
they're fighting us? Yeah.
And it was just like, and it wasn't even like always soldiers. It was just like regular ass people, like farmers and shit. They're like, oh no, bro, this is not happening.
Yeah. Everywhere they went, they had people throwing shit at them.
Yeah. Which, like I said, you know, that's what you would expect.
Well, it had never been done before. Yeah. It was an amphibious invasion of another country, and I don't think. Well, it had been done. Maybe Rome did it to Carthage, but that wasn't very far away, and Rome could get to Carthage by land if it really wanted to. It could go around the sea. Rome won, though. And that was more of a naval battle. This was a ground battle, like D-Day, like D-Day.
Yeah.
And Japan didn't have the experience. They were learning as they were going. It was real hard to keep a large army in the field when there's a body of water in between you and them. It just is.
Well, this is kind of like, in another way, this is an interesting series too, because not only is it sort of right around the time period where they were moving to firearms.
Yeah.
But also, you know, even samurai and stuff like that. But also, there was a lot of battle tactics that were used during this time period that hadn't really been used before. So they go kind of a lot of into that kind of stuff, and that kind of stuff is like really interesting too. Like, you know, like the one night raid that one army did, like, and that, you know, and that hadn't really been done before either, because it was kind of like, you know, you're supposed to come out and battle, like, you know, like you do, and then nobody had ever apparently that they recorded at least like snuck up on somebody when they were like in a camp and just like wiped a bunch of them out.
Louis mentioning that we learned nothing in Vietnam, you know, talking about Afghanistan and talking about the Mongols, and he's also talking about fucking Carthage. Yeah. It's been said for a long time that Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. And I got a feeling that's going to come true. The graveyard of empires. Right after Soviet Union lost their shit in Afghanistan, it broke apart. And fucking America's fucking ripe. It won't be the end of the states. America has a second wall of defense. The state governments are doing real good. But the federal government... I don't know. Doesn't look good. I think, and I'm not alone in saying this. A lot of the experts are saying that this looks like the final stages of a dying empire. And the time, about 200 years, and just the situations, the bipolar nature of the United States, its porous borders, crumbling infrastructure, totalitarianism, disease, if that's what you want to call it, mind fuckage. This is ripe. Well, what's happened? The problem with Afghanistan, usually what happens is that soldiers do not join losing armies. So it follows that the next stage would be the army evaporates. That's probably what will happen. They're already having recruitment problems. Then the empire gets desperate. They do things like order drafts. The drafts don't work. Then they just draft in people who they hate, who fight against the system. Then there's local rebellions and uprisings. They call the military out and order them to attack civilians, and the military says no, and then it just vanishes. Everybody goes home. Same thing happened in the Soviet Union. Soviet Union went down. They were yelling and screaming, threatening to throw people in prisons, ordering invisible armies around that just vanished, and it vanished. And man, it's what it looks like to me. But we'll see. I think it might be months away, maybe a year or two. Hard to say. But usually by the time something like that happens, it's seen as a good thing instead of a bad thing, because empires usually go out in a blaze of insanity, and the general public doesn't want it to be around anymore. And then sanity kind of comes back into play, and breakaway republics and new unions. That's usually what happens. But we'll see. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about this series?
Yeah, well, I mean, I should, I just wanted everybody to like watch it because it's like really
series,
good.
yeah.
It's really, really well made, and like I said, I kind of feel like they're gonna they might continue it, like I said, because this covers a pretty brief. I mean, it covers a very historically significant time period, but it really only covers about 50, 60 years, something like that. Maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 75 years.
There's plenty more story to tell. So
that's what I'm saying.
Thinking...
I mean, it kind of focuses on Oda Nobunaga, who's kind of like the first guy, like somebody can like compare him to Vlad the Impaler, which he was a little bit like that. Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu, and that's kind of how like it ends up with that guy. So it covers like that whole period, like all the battles that happened during that period, like essentially like the unification of Japan from a bunch of, warring factions and clans into like one country, and all of the struggles that happened. And like I said, it's I like that they did like the reenactments. It looked like they tried to make it period accurate. It looks really nice. All the battle reenactments, lots and lots of it's pretty gory, lots of beheading, lots of disemboweling, shit like that.
Yeah.
So if you're into that, but yeah, it's kind of like, I guess it's something like you would see on the History Channel back when the History Channel was good, but I think it's considerably better than that. It seems like a lot more elevated. It seemed like I really liked the look of it. I liked the aesthetic of it because it looked like somebody really put a lot of time and effort, particularly into like the animation and
theatrical.
It's like really, really nice looking.
If you ask me, in my opinion, when you're talking about historical documentaries that are this is the way to do it. You do it in a series. You do it at an epic scale. It's like watching Game of Thrones or something.
That's pretty much exactly what this was like.
And it has to be real artistic. This is the way you do a historical documentary.
Well, see, that's one of the best things about entertainment in general nowadays is I like that everything's going to more long form.
Yeah.
Because you definitely need that. I mean, Tammy sent me the thing the other day about the guy that's going to be playing Lestat in the new Vampire Chronicles series that they're doing. Like he looks like I like this. Looks like it's gonna be good. It's an Australian dude, but it's things like that. Any kind of like I'm not saying that like there's some stories are obviously better told in a movie. Just like some stories are better told in a short story, some stories are better told in the novel. But shit that's like 3, 4, 5 books long, you know, history that's this many years long and this complicated with this many warring factions and clans and characters and things, you really need some room to breathe and like stretch that out so you can go into the context a lot more so it's not rushed. I mean, if they had tried, it's possible you could make a documentary about this time period that was 45 minutes long, but
it wouldn't be as fun to watch.
It wouldn't be as entertaining, I don't think, because this one really like drills down into all the kind of...
What I liked about it is that they kind of let people know that warrior kings, and that's kind of what the daimyos were fucking nuts. And you know, just because you're a fucking nut doesn't mean that you're doomed to fail. The biggest fucking nut there fucking basically unified Japan. He couldn't hold on to it. Somebody else replaced him. Yeah. But he did a lot of the heavy lifting in the early part of it. And because he was just violent. And people were scared of him. It's effective. Short term. Not really long term.
Yeah, like I said, it bit him in the ass in the end.
Yeah.
But,
in the short term, you can have, you know, it's the same thing with mafias and mafia dons. In the long run, though, once the ball's rolling, you don't have to be that way. You want to start being kind of magnanimous and fucking virtuous, and you want to kind of have mercy on people, which the best leaders would do. They would call guys to them to grill them. You know, they'd call a vanquished daimyo, make him report, and they'd report fully ready to die, you know, dressed in their death robes, white death robes, ready to commit seppuku. And then they just talk with him and say, I like you, you know what I mean? Fucking, you're going to work for us, you know. That is a better way, because it's actually, you're giving the opponent a peaceful way out. You don't really want to put the opponent into a corner where he has to fight to the death. You know, it's just, you lose too many of your own guys fighting them when you do that. Yeah. So you want to try to bring them on board and make a coalitions. That's a lot better.
And I mean, can I just say that, like, committing ritual disembowelment on yourself, that has to be, like, the most hardcore thing ever. Yeah. Like, I won't be taken alive. And they can't just, like, you know, shoot themselves in the head or, you know, cut their throat or something like that. The women could. The women cut their throats. But even that's pretty hardcore, like, as a way to go. But, like, actually sitting there and going, and, like, just cutting all your fucking
they didn't
guts out. Holy shit.
They didn't get into the intricacies of that. The Japanese, the way certain things were worded in their language, they believed that the belly is kind of where the heart of the soul of the person was, and in their language they used back then to call somebody a coward or a bad person or a dishonest person or a dishonorable person, you basically said they had a black belly or a black heart or a black soul. So cutting your belly open was a way of showing the world that it was not black. Yeah. That it was that you were innocent or you were a good person and that you were maligned and you're on the way out. They didn't talk about that, and they also didn't really let the audience know that seppuku or fucking ritual disembowelment was not a quick death. It took them 12, sometimes 18 hours to die. So the death was almost kind of like crucifixion. You stand there, you stayed there in agony and showing everybody, you know, that your innards and pulling them out, you know. See, fuck you all. There's nothing wrong with me. I did the right thing, you know. That's you know, I'm a good person. It was virtue signaling.
Like really hardcore.
Right. Well, that's why I said, you know, the Western equivalent would be to crucify yourself. Yeah. You know, it was like that. And
which is also pretty hardcore.
Yeah, pretty hardcore too. That took days.
Yeah.
But no, I think fucking seppuku would be worse.
Yeah, I think it would be as well.
There was like some people, there's all these Japanese stories that were handed down of what dudes did after they disemboweled themselves. Did they take the guts out and lay it out? Ta-da! Yeah. Did guys reach up and try to fucking pierce their own hearts? Weird shit like that. There was, I don't know, it may be legendary.
Yeah, it's like, can you fucking imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think that you would lose so much blood that you would just go into shock, but maybe not.
No, your abdominal wall probably, you know what I mean, wouldn't bleed all that much. I mean, they cut into there. Those swords were very sharp, like a scalpel.
Yeah, that's true.
So it was, you know, if you had a real high quality sword, you could get in there like you were doing surgery on yourself. But it was a big show, you know, big production. The women had an easy way out, which is just they just take a small.
Which one? A relatively easy way out.
Oh, that was considered an easy way.
Yeah.
They just wrapped a damn silk cloth around a blade and fucking just did that on their throat. And that was the quick way out. And like I said, those blades were very sharp, so it would be like a straight razor. You wouldn't feel much pain, probably, if you did it quickly.
Because I think...
you'd see all that you know.
Didn't Lady Cha-Cha do that?
Yeah.
I think she did, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Because her name's Lady Cha-Cha, that's why I remembered.
Well, she was evidently quite a woman.
Well, yeah.
Quite a woman. Yeah.
Yeah, they did talk about, I mean, this is mostly a sausage fest, but they did talk about, like, some of the wives and concubines that did, like, did some shit. But like I said, it's just funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's just like, it's kind of like ancient Rome in the sense that, you know, hey, I want, you know, I don't have an heir, or I want this person to be my heir, so I'm just going to bump off all these other people, like all these other relatives that might stand in the way. They just like had absolutely no compunction about doing that.
Now they talked about the imperial palace and the emperor. The emperor was kind of like a spiritual figure. He was kind of like the Pope. He didn't really have any armies. He didn't have his own. Didn't really have any power other than political, kind of like social power. And he had a court underneath him. And guys who were badass warlords who came from, you know, peasant stock. To become shogun, you know what I mean? You'd have to get falsified documents saying that you came from some royal family. And the courts would fucking help you fake that if you impressed them enough, which is funny because even in Japan there was corruption. It'd be like, you know, faking U.S. citizenship to become a president or something, or faking, you know, just the kind of inventing laws so you can steal money. Shit goes all the way back to that period in Rome.
Well, yeah, like I said, humans are humans.
Yeah, and I'm watching.
They pull the same shenanigans.
Yeah, I'm watching the series, and I'm like, there's and everything that their daimyos are doing, and there's so many modern analogies. You're like, yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, like I said, humans don't really change all that much.
Same shit.
It's the same kind of shit that's going on back then.
Yeah.
But I think that's why people are like so entertained by this type of stuff because you know, you can see modern equivalents because people are not really all that
They didn't change that
different.
much.
No.
That's a problem. You see, whenever you start dealing with people who cannot really, let's just say, ideologies have to survive human nature. If you believe in things that are just contrary to the world as it is, it ain't gonna make it. And because people just kind of, people are what they are. You can't make people something that they're not, and it just is demonstrated over and over again in history. You know, which is probably why they want to replace everybody with damn robots. Because if I was rich and all powerful, I'd want to get rid of you fucks. I couldn't trust you. Just look at history. So I'm assuming that they're trying to get rid of us. Because I would. I'd be like, man, they're going to take all my money and all my power, and I'm not really making any profit off these people. We got to fucking depopulate this bitch. And there's just so much of the shit that they do looks like that's what they're thinking. I just hope that that's just a fucking what they would call a conspiracy theory. Are they that crazy? Maybe. Hard to say.
Okay.
Ridley Scott would say, yeah, fucking right they are. Yeah. Wayland Yutani fucking corporation wants to run everything.
Danny Rolling Ghostface says clones will happen before robots, in my opinion. They might, you know, to be honest with you. And like I said, I don't know. Genetically
engineered superhumans. China wants them, and evidently they have some.
Captain Blearda says John Belushi was a great and honorable samurai
warrior. Yes, he was. Motherfucker knew how to cut a vegetable.
That's right, I forgot.
Yeah. He's one of the greatest samurai of all time. I forgot all about him.
Holy shit. I want to go watch some old SNL on fucking YouTube or something.
Back when that shit was funny.
Yeah, well, yeah, some of it was funny.
Yeah, that's true. Not all of it was funny.
Not all of it was funny. Even back then, it wasn't.
Yeah.
All right, so anything else you would like to add? But yeah, this is on Netflix. I don't know how long it's been on there. I just noticed
it. A couple weeks.
But yeah, it's called Age of Samurai, Battle for Japan.
Yeah, this bitch here is fucking... You got to see this
It's really good. I was like, I was just like...
See this one?
Riveted.
And then get fucking Lone Wolf and Cub, all 6 movies. You can get those like $70 on Blu-ray, all 7 movies now. It's good. 6 movies. Fucking classic fucking movie. That, and check out Red Sun. You can see that for free on YouTube. With fucking... It's a cowboy samurai movie.
Cowboy Samurai.
Yeah, I just watched it a couple days ago. Shit was still good.
Yeah, you told me you watched it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about... Should I spoil it?
Go ahead.
Stephen King's Graveyard Shift.
Yep.
Because what ended up happening was that in the Patreon poll, you guys, in the Patreon poll for the movie retrospective, it was a 3-way fucking tie. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what we're going to do... So we watched Graveyard Shift last night, so I'm going to do a matinee on that tomorrow. We're going to do a movie retrospective on Witchfinder General with Vincent Price. And then we're still going to have to do probably a matinee. It'll probably be on Sunday for Vampires from 1971 with a Y. Like the smutty one.
Yeah.
The lesbian one.
That's a great one.
Yeah, it is a good one. But yeah, so that it was a 3-way tie. So I said, well, we'll get to all of them eventually. But we'll do Graveyard Shift tomorrow, and then we'll do Witchfinder General for Friday or Thursday if you're a patron.
They're telling me Kenshin movies are great. They're on Netflix right now. I don't know what a Kenshin is.
Yeah, we should look those up.
Yeah.
We can look those up.
Kenshin movies, okay.
Yeah, we're going out tonight, so we're not going to be able to watch anything tonight, but we can watch some stuff tomorrow night, I guess. So yeah.
They say that Wolf and Cub Criterion Collection is on HBO Max.
Oh, is it really?
Right
okay, so if you have HBO Max, you want to... We have it on Blu-ray or DVD,
Yeah.
All right, so we will be back tomorrow talking about some Stephen King adaptations and some giant rats. And so have a good rest of your day. We'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon. Bye.